Good morning, Meera.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's great to see you.
Likewise. Thank you for joining me this morning. I was excited to see the news announcement y'all had on Wednesday and thought it'd be fun to give the community a update on the news and talk with you about how you guys are thinking about Fund 4, the mandate y'all have, and areas you're looking at.
That sounds good.
So quick level set. As I was reading the news, just to make sure I got my ground facts right. Town Hall's venture fourth fund was announced Wednesday, $440 million raise. General thesis applying AI and tech more broadly to serving underserved populations in healthcare. And this fund in particular sounds like it's focused across all stages and sizes as opposed to kind of the early stage tech-enabled services. I'd be curious, do I have that kind of ground setting right as you would think about it from Fund 4, how you guys are thinking about Fund 4 and deploying capital? And if so, I'd be curious kind of the how you're thinking about the thesis today and the expansion of it beyond kind of tech-enabled services and the sizes, stages of checks you are thinking about writing.
Yeah, those are all the right facts. So that's a great start. And I'd say that, Town Hall has been around for since 2018. And, since then, what's been true then and is true now is that the fund is committed to investing behind exceptional founders who want to build new paradigms that improve healthcare, that build hugely successful companies. They're brand new paradigms, they're innovations, they build hugely successful companies that make a difference, right? And improve health outcomes, particularly for underserved populations. So that through line is, been there from Fund 1 to Fund 4. I like to say that, every innovation, for every fund, we have to say what is the most salient innovation for this moment in time, right? So you're not going to, it's not really innovative to invest in a circa 2018 business model, right? The market's like moved light years since then. And so that's why, as we look at our own investments, right, they have evolved to be more asset light, more technology forward, progressively through the funds. And I think that's going to be especially true for Fund 4, where we believe that there's really important innovation to be had in two major categories. Number one is really expanding access to care for underserved communities. And Gen AI, among other things, allows you to do that at a radically lower cost to serve and makes it financially sustainable. So that's number one. And there's a lot to be done in modernizing the healthcare infrastructure, right? So that alleviates and reduces clinician and provider burden and makes the system work better. So those are the two categories, which practically means that in Fund 4, right, we want to partner, as always, with the best technologists and product builders, particularly those who may be non-healthcare native, but want to build hugely valuable companies and want to make a difference. We want to partner with those folks and use our skills, our network, our muscle as a healthcare sector specialist fund that's been doing this for some time and doing it well, to partner with them to help them build.
That's awesome. I dig it. I'd be curious. There's kind of the general trope in question about is healthcare venture scale, and I would presume, given your role, you've got a pretty clear answer to that in your head. But I think there's a more nuanced question behind that of how you think about defining success for companies in the portfolio and how you think about underwriting to I noticed your fund one had top decile returns, as you were talking about in the Forbes article on the funding announcement. How you think about underwriting across the portfolio to generate that kind of top decile of returns, and think about that for the investors behind your fund. So I'd be curious to hear you reflect on how you think about when you're talking to your existing portfolio, when you're talking to potential investments, how do you think about measuring success so that you can generate those returns for your backers, but then also ensure that models are scaling in the right way, thinking through the right things, doing the right things by those underserved populations?
I'll start by saying that our goal is for our LPs that this is a destination to put capital, not just it makes you feel good, but because it generates the best returns that you can get across the board, right? Case in point, you referenced the Forbes article. Our net IRR for the 2018 fund was 33%. The median performance, according to the benchmarks, is 12%. That would make Fund One a top decile fund across any sector, anywhere for venture. So, that's our standard, right? Like we've got to be able to underwrite at the fund level in order to be a top quartile fund, top decile fund, ideally, fund after fund, right? And then as you pointed out, we have the ability to both launch companies. We have our own company creation arm, as well as invest at the seed stage, all the alphabets of the venture and into growth equity. And we try to be work at different stages because we are working within one sector in U.S. healthcare, right? Both tech and tech-enabled services. And so, as you can expect, right, the underwriting and the expectation for the seed and the A deals has to be, in the high single digits, call it 10x if you would, right? Whereas the growth equity, it's a later stage company. Often the company is close to break even or profitable, and it's truly growth capital, right? There it's de-risked to a high degree. And the underwriting, will be, call it closer to the lower single digits, right? So, and then with that, you construct a fund that, it clocks in as a top performer. That's the hope.
Yep.
The other thing I would say more pointedly is that we think that people who think that venture is not compatible with investing for underserved communities are just simply missing the point. If you look at these, I mean, I just told you the numbers, right? So I think, we like to say, look, there's huge white spaces, huge moats, if you know where to look, if you know how to pair the best payment model with the best care model, if you know how policy is going to provide tailwinds to your business, and you're agile, right? You need to be AI forward, you need to use the best technology. And, then our hope is that, and that's what we've been doing as a specialist fund.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'd presume coupling that last statement you just made about knowing where policy is going, so on and so forth, with earlier statement about we want to partner with folks outside of healthcare, and we are a healthcare specialist fund, so we know the market. It sounds like the general thesis is, given our background in healthcare, our experience as a team, we kind of know where that puck is going. We're going to help apply that healthcare knowledge to best-in-class technologists, folks who are thinking about how to drive that side of innovation forward, and bringing the two together is where the magic is made, where magic happens, right?
Yes. I think in our team, we have there's a couple of things on the team. We have an amazing breadth of experience with my partners, Andy Slavitt, David Whelan, Anna Fagan, and I, across company creation, across policy. My own background, I built out a portion of the consulting practice at McKinsey, focused on healthcare before this, right? Each of us brings different forms of healthcare and experience across healthcare. And relationships that span decades, right? The other powerful thing that we have, and I'm fortunate to have, is this amazing ecosystem of collaborators, right? Many of them LPs, many of them not, but they include the health plans, the health systems, community health centers, and government agencies, federal and state. You'll be, after the announcement of the fund, we are getting inbound from some of the state leaders saying, hey, we have these funds for innovation, like, our technology is like, running on COBOL from the 70s. Can you help, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's people out there who hear the message and want to partner on innovation. Now, not everything is going to be venture backable, right? Some things in life need to be philanthropy. Some things need to be public utility. Some things need to be slow growing, profitable small businesses. Not everything is venture. And so we've got to keep our head on straight on what can be underwritable to venture and whatnot. But I think we have a really great network of people who, want to work with innovators who want to help solve real problems. So that, I think that's, when you're a specialist, that's what you do. That's all you do.
For sure. Yep. One of the things I am, where it seems like there's a particular opportunity to partner with the existing ecosystem, and a lot of energy right now is around rural care in this country and rethinking how rural healthcare is delivered. Obviously, the Big Beautiful Bill has taken a cut out of Medicaid funding, but there's dollars going back into rural care, and it in reading articles about the space and FQHCs and how they're trying to implement AI and things like that, it seems like there can be almost a new form of digital divide appearing between those institutions and their ability to implement these technologies because they might not have reliable internet access in rural Arizona or wherever they might be. I'd be curious how you think about the opportunities in rural healthcare and applying technology, and if you see anything that you're particularly excited about that's happening in that general sector.
Yeah, it's a great topic. As context, I serve on the board of Hopscotch Primary Care, which is a company that is in rural healthcare, provides healthcare to seniors in rural communities. Paint the picture for you, Kevin, right? So Hopscotch is, located, their hubs are located around Asheville in Western North Carolina. There, if you can find a provider that can see you, your wait time is going to be 8 weeks, right? If they can even see you, you're driving 45 minutes plus in order to get seen by a healthcare provider. And exactly as you said, the access is super spotty. So, a team like that has done an amazing job. I'm using that example to talk about what I think is, we have some experience firsthand with the company on what it takes to serve this community well, right? What that team's done an amazing job of, but if you can, amazing job of is they've, found really great locations. And if you find the right locations, the CAC, customer acquisition cost, is incredibly low. Why? Because there's no game in town and people want a really high quality provider who is there for them, right? Now, you do need to be, and that can make it pretty capital efficient. There are providers there that if they retire, there's nobody else to take over. And so you need an incredible talent acquisition engine in order to continue to sustain those practices. And the only way you can be that talent acquisition, that destination for a really great talent, is if you give the healthcare providers an incredible experience, right? And this is where the technology comes in, right? This is where, what we talked about earlier, right? I'm like, this is a team that's kind of been very forward leaning on using AI scribes, and their providers love them. Their usage is, and depth of usage and breadth of usage is about as good as it can get. They do a lot they're very good at pairing the primary care that they provide and in-home care they provide face to face with additional specialist services, right? Whether it's behavioral health services, whether it's, cardiac care, getting echocardiograms on site. So this is, again, it's lots of different technology pieces, not just AI, that make this work. But at its core, if you can find the right markets, it's got, and, create a really cost-effective model, both of which we've seen to be eminently feasible. I think that's very scalable, and you can and accessible to a lot of folks. So I think this is where the rural health transformation opportunity is really. I'm hopeful, and I think that this is the signaling that CMS has, that the rural health opportunity isn't just a band-aid over hospitals that are losing Medicaid revenue, that they're authentically committed to primary care providers and people who want to serve the community. But I think the structure is good because it's one-time funding, and it's a nice way to jumpstart innovative models, or give them jumpstart's the right word, jumpstart these innovative models. But they need to have a path to be self-sustaining, and I think that's where technology can play an important role. But I wouldn't, again, I keep coming back to this. I know this is a big Gen AI moment, and people are like AI doctor and all that. I'm like, that's great. I don't think there's any substitute. I mean, you still need some human healthcare providers, and you need to be the destination for those human healthcare providers, right? In conjunction with decision support tools, in conjunction with scribes, in conjunction with like voice agents for aftercare and in between care. So that's what gets us pretty excited. And I think this is a really good opportunity that I hope folks in your community are looking closely at.
Yep.
Healthcare is
So
hard to break into. I'm like, here's a
for
gift for
sure.
you. Like, go run at
Totally.
this.
Yep.
And there's an art to running at this, I will say. Like, if whoever wants to talk about this afterwards can come to me. But like, it's not like, oh, where do I sign up to get started? It's not like that, right? I think you have to, the state leaders who are trying to wrangle these applications are saying, wow, like, there's all kinds of technologies that are banging down the door, and they're really not tuned in to what we actually need and what we're trying to solve for. And so
Yep.
I think this is where you can't be a hammer looking for a nail. You actually have to show up and work with people to help solve the problems they care about.
Yeah. What's the most as a fund generally working with, bringing folks from outside of healthcare and helping them understand the healthcare world? What's the most counterintuitive thing you often find yourself talking about for entrepreneurs new to healthcare when they're talking to state agencies, whatnot, that is a hard learning curve for them?
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, I think there are entrepreneurs who, people are like, oh yeah, government is highly regulated. Back even a few years ago, be like, government programs are highly regulated, they're risky, government's hard to partner with. I mean, Andy was CMS administrator, and he would always say, I ran $1 trillion agency with 6,000 employees. Like, how are we going to transform care for hundreds of millions of Americans without public-private partnership, right? So I think I try to reframe for people and say, look, there's a long tradition of public-private partnership in this country, and that's what you're doing, right? So again, if you don't know how to evaluate it, all you will see is unmanageable risk, right? And that's just simply not true. So number one, that government is that. Second is, oh, the reimbursement is too low. I mean, even pre-AI, we had incredible entrepreneurs who figured out really scrappy business models that would be able to serve Medicaid populations. You have to be incredibly efficient, but it is venture backable. We support a company called Marble Health that provides youth mental health care. I mean, to predominantly Medicaid population in public schools, right? There's no way you do that unless you're incredibly efficient with, through the pipeline of, reaching patients and families and providing care to them. So those are, a couple of common misconceptions. A third is, oh, you guys are an impact fund, you're taking care of underserved populations, and, that cannot provide venture returns. I think I've just given you the numbers to the contrary. So I do think those are some misconceptions. I think people are right what they are right about is healthcare is hard to break into, right? And that's why I'm like, when things are hard to break into or hard to understand, find some friends, right? Find people who can help you navigate and get to the right spot and focus on the right problem. Focus on the right problem and sufficiently big problem so you can build a big business.
Yep. Y'all penned a nice thesis back, I think, in June about how AI can transform healthcare, an industry that has been notoriously resistant to technology-driven change. I'd be curious if we're having this conversation 5, 10 years in the future, play out the counterfactual. If AI and tech hasn't driven a meaningful change in the industry, what do you think we'll look back on and say is the biggest impediment to driving sustainable change via these tools?
I would say that it would be not enough really talented AI native founders and entrepreneurs made their way to serving these vast underserved markets. And that would be, that's why we need to get the message out. People who are focused on healthcare need to get the message out on why this is eminently venture scalable. I think that would be the failing. And I think the other failing would be that, we who are focused on underserved markets have failed to persuade the builders about the fact that, you can, I mean, if you can build a solution where it is, where there is a higher barrier to entry in some cases, but there's also a durable moat, right? That we fail to persuade them that the higher barrier to entry also results in a durable moat. Instead, they go build like, concierge solutions to make my life slightly better. I think that would be the failing.
Yeah. And I'm
I mean,
curious,
maybe the
kind of,
other thing is if we don't do enough, I think, sorry, one more thing is if
yeah,
we don't do enough to do this in partnership with some of the, sometimes you have to break glass, but in most of the time, right, in our ecosystem, there's actually partners who want to do something different, right? There are
yeah,
hospital systems who want to build different models, want to partner with virtual care providers. There's health plans who want to, massively like reduce barriers to reimbursement and access to care, right? So I think
yeah.
partnering, we didn't do enough to partner with the willing large incumbents would be the third failing.
And I'd be curious your reflection on the regulatory front at the moment. It seems like one of the risks is you've got different states putting together different regulatory apparatuses to regulate the use of AI in healthcare. How much do y'all think about kind of that state patchwork and how challenging it would be to navigate different regulatory regimes across the country and getting in front of that in a productive way?
Yeah, I think that look, it's definitely patchwork of regulations make anybody's life difficult in any business if you have that's overseen by state regulators, whether it's, cross-border commerce or or healthcare, right?
Yeah.
That being said, I think that the states do what people don't always realize in healthcare. States do have groupings, right? Like you talk, yeah, these state leaders, like you pretty much, well, if you've been in the business, like if state X does this, then these are the four other states that are going to follow over a 2-year time period because they're adjacent or philosophically aligned, right? That's kind of point number one. Second is, what people don't realize is you don't need a 50-state business to be a unicorn in healthcare or even a decacorn, right? If you have real depth of service and you're providing, healthcare is, a high quote unquote per revenue per patient business, right? In certain segments, right? So I mean, in some of our businesses, when we look at the underwriting, you get to 3, 4 states with real density, and you can build a very, very large business, right? So it's not like you've got to navigate the entire 50-state landscape in order to, build a very large, successful business in healthcare is the other thing I would say. We
Yep.
do try to, the third is like, part of this is we try not to be passive recipients in policy, but actually lean into it and provide. This is why we spend time, this was my kind of prior life when I was leading some of the Medicaid practice at McKinsey, is spending time with these state leaders, right? And talking about policies that are in the public interest that support innovation, right? And give feedback, right? Hey, you guys have these quality metrics. Every state's got their own flavor. You're going to drive providers and health plans crazy. Like, here's how we can rationalize some of these, right? That's the dialogue to have.
Yep. So I want to pick up on a thread you mentioned earlier, which is that of talent. And one of the things where I get a little stuck at times on AI and healthcare and all the innovation is how healthcare competes effectively with the open AIs, the tech industry, with the salaries they are paying folks and whatnot. How do you think about assessing the talent inside of startups you're looking at investing in, working with? What is needed there as an infrastructure, and where kind of the core competencies of healthcare AI companies live versus that of the general models and that things that they're building?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's a very live question, live wire question for us now because we're wrangling with exactly this, right? I think our working hypothesis, and we're still learning, I'll humbly say, is this, right? I don't think most healthcare companies, barring some exceptions, are competing for the top researcher at OpenAI, right? Who's building kind of the next iteration of the foundation model, right? So we're not really, competing with that. It's a separate matter as to, the people joining one of these large foundation model companies today, like, from what I hear, I don't know if the cash may be exceptional, but like from what I hear, the equity isn't that attractive, right? If you're getting in at this stage, you might almost be better served by going to an early stage healthcare company. You might actually, do better on the equity side, right? So put that to the side. So I don't think we're competing for that talent, and like I'm not sure that it is going to be all that remunerative at this late stage in the game, given sort of where the valuations are.
Mhm.
I think what we've been trying to look for is a couple things, right? We try to think about people who are best positioned to be AI, AI first and or AI native. And frankly, that's people who are still in undergraduate degrees today, right? That's people that are going to come out of these colleges and universities in the next couple of years, right? With AI relevant degrees, right? Not necessarily always computer science, but more data science, data engineering. So that's kind of pair that type of talent that, have a very good awareness of the latest technology, right? That they're playing, like the minute the agentic browser technology is released, like they're playing with it, and 2 days later they have exactly a point of view on where it breaks and what the edge cases are. So there's that like AI native talent that we think is important to have, and pair that with people who've been to the school of hard knocks in healthcare technology, right? People who've done the pipes and plumbing and like, even now with all the interoperability changes, it is so there's still important gaps in access to healthcare data. The models in some ways are constrained by the quality of the data and how it's warehoused. So, pairing that kind of talent with people who've, been through the blood and guts of healthcare technology infrastructure and in really good companies, right? I'll shout out companies like Oscar or Devoted in that regard, right? Who've
Yep.
been an awesome, hotbed of tech talent, right? So putting teams like that together across the tech side as well as product side is where we focus our energy. That makes sense. And so
Yep.
that's kind of the standard we have. And, ultimately, like when we evaluate companies, right, we're skewing, a lot of our focus is on, we want the usage data, the active user data, the depth of usage, because to us, that speaks more than anything. You can say, right, anything you can demo, every demo will start with like the requisite, well, here's the patient and here's like, let's do the AI call. And, I do all the AI, I'm the like resident AI voice agent tester, just because I think my team thinks I do a pretty good job with the edge cases. So, but demos
Yep.
aside, anything could look good in a demo. I think we're very focused on usage data and user love in order to determine whether the product is delighting its users or not.
Yep. So most conversation has been very AI focused, but I recognize the fund is not just AI focused. I'd be curious, as you think about technology more broadly than AI, new therapies, new devices, new surgical procedures coming to market, how do you think about the broader landscape of opportunities beyond AI-centric change that's happening in the sector?
Yeah, I think if you're paying attention, you'll see that the pipeline for cardiology care, for instance, for dementia care, and cell and gene therapies focused on cancer is very, very active. There's new mechanisms of action, new targets that are emerging, again, supported by AI-enabled drug discovery. And so I do think that we're in for a pretty exciting time, right? Where there's going to be these miracle drugs that are really curative for diseases, right? And the most recent instance being the, not cell and gene therapy, but the GLP-1s, right? And the incredible benefits, metabolic benefits they provide. So I think we have that type of technology. I think there's really exciting developments in point of care diagnostics, right? COVID forced us to go from, basically PCR machines that were the size of a box to the size of a coffee pot, right? That you could use at point of care, right? So there's that kind of innovation, even 10 years ago or 20 years ago, most hip and knee surgeries were done in hospitals. Now we're at the inverse, and that's just going to continue, right? So there's all these, if you look ahead to the next decade, there's all this stuff that's going to change and going to be incredibly impactful in healthcare. And so I like to think of, and then there's Gen AI and all, and I don't need to say more on that. I'm like, how do you put all those pieces together into a service model that allows a senior to be in their home and independent for those last years of their life, right? Provides the
Yep.
caregiver, right? The daughter, the son, the family member, the information, right? Like, how do we put all this stuff to work for people who need it the most and don't get it and are impoverished, right? Like, and don't always get it. So that I think is, point being, as a team, we have people who are looking at all the kind of latest in Gen AI, but we also have people looking at technology advancement and all the other areas I described, because I think those are, in some ways, if equally, if not more impactful than some of the Gen AI advancements.
Totally. Well, Meera, I know we're getting to the bottom of the hour, so we could talk for hours about all this stuff, but want to be respectful of time. I appreciate you coming by to give us the update on what y'all are focused on with the fund, and I'm excited to see where y'all spend your time over the next couple of years on the journey.
Thank you. As I shared with you before, the team and I are huge fans of HTN and religious Sunday morning readers, so it's great to be able to share our story with you, Kevin. Thank you.
Appreciate you. See you,
Take
Meera.
care. Bye.
Bye.